All right, it is now 2:30. Thank you for coming to 50 Shades of Shade, where we're going to talk about shade structures today. And we're just going to let people arrive for the next couple minutes. My name is Peter Blitz. I'm with Camp Shutterbuggy, and we've got a whole crew of fun folks here from Vancouver to share their experience with some shade structures, and also Sarah's from San Francisco. So while we wait for people to come in for the next couple seconds, I prepared a little blooper video that I wanted to share with you all to enjoy while we wait just for a couple more minutes for people to arrive. Okay, so can everyone hear me okay, by the way? All right. So while we're waiting for people, if you can just make sure that chat window's open and go ahead and type in your camp name, type in what your favorite porta potty was last year, whatever. Just let's get that chat window going. Don't let this happen to you. Hello, Sarah D. from Beaverton. My favorite porta potty was the frog potty this year. Did anyone see the frog potty? It was amazing. The green frog potty. Hello, kid. Hello, Joseph. Come on, we've got 26 people in this session. Let's see some. Oh, hello, Dennis from Cosmic Corner. Oh, with all the mud. Yes, that was my favorite too. Does anyone get this joke? Somewhere there's 215 in G. Thought that might be an insider joke. Welcome, Nickster. Okay, my video's almost over. Time to get this party started. Uh-oh, Pholicia. Pholicia, you're coming on. Oh boy, she's here.
Hi.
So Pholicia, we're doing a land acknowledgement right now. So I think you should just hold on there, honey. As you can tell, this might be a really fun breakout session. We're hoping it's both entertaining and educational. But here in Vancouver, we do have a tradition, and it's to acknowledge the land that we're on right now. And as a visitor on this land, I would like to begin by acknowledging that we are gathered on the traditional and unceded territory of the Coast Salish people. And that is actually a view from my office right now. I took that half an hour ago. It's gorgeous. So thank you. It's a beautiful place to be. All right, let's continue. So welcome to 50 Shades of Shade. I'm your host, Peter Blitz, and your co-hosts, jumping the gun, are Anita Douchalott and Pholicia Phishsauce. There's Pholicia. Pholicia is also my partner.
Hi,
Pholicia. Hi.
Hi,
Where's
my name's
Anita?
Pholicia.
Is Anita? Is
Hello.
Anita running late?
And my co-host is late as usual. Sorry.
Oh, there she is, Anita Douchalott.
What's
Oh, what does your bag say there, Anita?
That's the introduction, Anita.
Ask me about my explosive diarrhea. Perfect for Anita Douchalott. Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm parched.
We'd like to welcome you.
We're just gonna have some apple juice, if that's all right.
Apple cider. Now, this is a non-alcoholic session. We're not allowed to drink. So that is apple cider you have there.
That's a great apple cider.
That's a boy.
It's a very large apple cider. Okay, hang on for a hot second. We're gonna do the agenda here. We're gonna do a quick overview of shade structure types. And then I'm going to do that. And then we're going to switch to a panel discussion with 3 camps: Polar Bar, Camp Beaverton, and Camp Shutterbuggy, my camp. And then you guys get to participate by voting for your favorite shade structure. And at the end, we put together a very cool hands-on 2-foot level rather than 20-foot or 2,000-foot level demonstration video with all kinds of cool stuff of how to build a shade structure right here in Vancouver. All right, so Anita and Pholicia, do you want to go over the chat guidelines today?
Yes. Welcome everybody. It's nice to meet everyone virtually, although
Hello.
we can't really see you just yet. And we know you're gagged, so hence the image being gagged. Although we have gagged everybody, we just encourage everybody to ask their questions in the chat window. And then in between, the panelists will be answering some of your questions. If we don't get to all of your questions, we will make note of those, and we will get back to everybody by email after the session. But we do encourage you to add your own comments and your own sass if you wish. We just ask that you keep it respectful, obviously. Yeah.
You mean I can't talk?
Are you not listening?
No.
Okay, thanks, Anita. Thanks,
Back over to you,
Pholicia. Now, don't wait until the Q&A at the end of the panelists to write your questions. Please write your questions in the chat window as we go, because the 2 fantastic drag queens there, if they can manage it, are going to move those or organize those questions and then present them to the panelists. So as your questions come into your head, put them into the chat window right away. Okay, I think we are good to go. Let me just start my little timer thing. Let's see here. No, screw that. Okay, we're going to go without the timer. So next up, we've got some overview of shade structures. First of all, we've got the traditional monkey hut. And the reason I'm doing this, by the way, you guys, is to just give a common language. I'm not going to talk at length about all these shade structures. We're just going to be talking about them. So I want to make sure that you guys know which ones we're talking about when we have the panel. So we've got a monkey hut. That's traditionally the PVC frame there with some structure under it. They could extend multiple PVC frames. The flat panel structure, which is very common, is made up with metal pipes and some tarps or shade cloth on top. And then we've got a carport type, which is, your traditional Costco carport, usually made out of, a plastic PVC covering and some metal pipes. And then we've got a tension type. And that one is typically characterized by a large metal pole in the middle. And then you've got wires holding it taut. And it could have many permutations. It had many poles. It can spider out, look like almost anything. But the key thing is that the tension is holding it upright. And then the giant tent type, which is kind of like a wedding tent, if you will, often comes in different types of fabric. This is actually our tent in Camp Shutterbuggy for our events. It's a cloth Indian wedding tent. And then we've got the dome type. In this case, this is a geodesic dome with a metal frame. And that's a pretty common one you'll see, but we've got other kinds of domes, and one you'll see on this call today from Camp Beaverton. And here's some overview of materials. We'll talk about shade cloth. That's the kind of plasticky stuff that is air permeable. So it's not watertight. The air kind of moves in and out of it, and it comes in various colors and various levels of sun shading. Aluminette is a fabric we'll be talking a lot about today. And that is a kind of a less tightly woven reflective material made out of aluminum. And then we've got just the normal vinyl tarp, which is waterproof, but also doesn't let air through. And when we tie all these things on the structure, typically we're going to use a bungee ball. And then to hold it down to some kind of ground anchor, we've got ratchet tie downs. The poles that we use in the flat panel structures are often referred to as EMT conduit, although we use metal fence posts. And then when we talk about a shade fitting, that is these cool little things that come in various designs for corners, for all kinds of stuff. Okay, and then next up, we're going to look at the ground anchors real quick. So we're going to talk about a few different kind of ground anchors today. We got lag bolts, we got rebar. Everyone's heard of that. The claw is actually what we use in Camp Shutterbuggy. It's pretty cool. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. And we'll actually have a demonstration of putting all of these in the ground at the video at the end of the session. So stick around for that. You'll see how easy it is to put in the ground and get out again. And then you've got the standard camp nail, which is useful for holding things like ground cover down. And then, I was watching the plenary. I hope you guys all saw that earlier today. There was some great information in there. Dark Angel was talking about the 1,500 metal ground anchors, lag bolts were found on the playa this year. There's an epidemic of things being left behind. So please, when you go out to the playa, bring these tools with you so you can get those things out of the ground. The first one is really essential, a crowbar. The second one you might not have seen, but if you're using any kind of rebar, that rebar can get really, really stuck in there. So bring what's called a rebar extractor. It's kind of like a lever. And then $25 gets you a metal detector. When you're doing your moop sweep, why not bring a metal detector? Go around the edges of your structure, see if you left anything behind. That's a pretty cheap thing to do. And then, if you're having an event, you can have a doorman actually just scan people too. That'd be fun. So help Dark Angel keep the playa clean. And one thing you can do is just put a ribbon on all your ground anchors so you can find them if it rains. Oh my gosh, does it ever rain on the playa? I don't think so. All right. Well, that's a quick overview of the different types of shade structures and materials that we're going to talk about today. And what we'd like to do now is welcome our first panelists. So we've got Cole and Skip from Camp Polar Bar. Hey, Cole, how's it going?
Good. How are you, Peter?
I am good. It's a gorgeous day, and I'm
Right.
sitting here. I know, it's beautiful. You guys look great.
Thank you.
Thank you. More chest.
Thank
More
you.
chest. Show me some more chest. Oh wait, no. This is going on YouTube. It has to be PG. No swearing. No chest. All right. Well, Cole and Skip, why don't you just tell us a little bit about your camp first? What do you guys? What's your guys' thing? What are you guys up to?
So we're Camp Polar Bar. The main feature of our camp is we bring a 36-foot diameter, 18-foot high inflatable igloo, and we refrigerate it with the largest swamp cooler you've ever seen in your life. And so we serve ice cold drinks, and we have daytime parties every day of the week on the playa.
I'm going to say that this is one of my favorite places to hang out during the day. I love this place, and it's very, very cool. So let's take a look at what your camp looks like from space. Look at that.
Yeah, that was taken Wednesday afternoon.
Oh yeah, it looks bumping.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell us?
This main structure here, the large rectangular structure with all the panels. That's our tent shade structure, and that's the main shade structure that we acquired and purchased this year. And Cole was the lead designer of this guy. But this is a really good view of kind of the size and the scale of this shade structure and kind of how big they can get.
And what are the other structures that you guys have there that I can see? Like what just give me an overview of all the different structures you have.
Yeah, so that's so this is the tent camping piece is a flat top, and then just to the left of it, there's this and then there's this white square. That's actually two Costco carports side by side.
That was our
kitchen. Then just to the left, that's our kitchen. And then just to the left of those, there's the three rectangles. That's additional flat top. So they're just a different size and height than the tent shade structure piece. And that front part is our kind of communal hangout area.
And what's this little lovely thing there?
Oh yeah, that thing. That's our igloo.
Oh
so
yeah.
That's, I almost forgot about that.
Oh yeah,
that's our igloo. It has an entrance coming out to the corner of the street there, and in the back there's a second entrance where we put the swamp cooler, and that's where all the cool air comes in.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say you've got the only inflatable igloo on the playa. Just gonna go out and say
Yeah, one of them. But it's a great space to come out and hang out during the day because it's one of the very few air-conditioned dance spaces that you can hang out midday to get out of the heat.
This is true. It's lovely. Okay, so let's talk about your camping area, and we're going to kind of focus on the camping stuff for today's session a lot. So this is your new shade structure that you guys. Is it new this year? Is it this year?
Yeah, we had to purchase a brand new shade structure for Polar Bar this year. It was a big capital investment, so we had to really choose what was going to make the most sense for us long term. We ended up going with the basically the product list from Form and Reform, and we use that as a base level to form this kit. We ended up not going to Oakland to pick up the package from Form and Reform, and they don't offer shipping to Canada or at all. So we ended up sourcing everything locally, and that was an adventure all on its own.
So let me ask a couple questions just about the physical dimensions of it. Sure. So what do you remember, like what length and width the structure was when it was assembled?
So it's 48 feet by 70 feet long. It's 10 feet high vertical poles, and the squares are 10 by 12. So we had to cut and add extenders to some of the 10-foot poles, but that was to make room for the shift pods that were going to be underneath. They needed a little bit more space. That's a great segue into my next question. How many tents did you end up getting into that structure then? Yep. This is actually a question as well.
Yeah, I think, oh God, I'm going to guess. I think it was around 20.
Yeah, it was. I think it was like 25. There was a lot of space as well. We ended up having space for about 2 more, so it was generous.
Mm-hmm. With the same shade structure, we basically build them out into squares. So the EMT pipe comes in. Typically, the standard length is 10 feet, but we wanted 12 feet because shift pods, which are very common and popular, are 12 by 12. So making the 10 by 12 squares, or rectangles really, would allow for a little bit more room for those larger tents. And then we just build up from that. So I think we sort of envisioned having, it's about 1 tent per like rectangle section of like between the 4 legs.
And then that's pretty good. So did you beforehand, did you collect information from campers on what size tents they were going to bring, just so you kind of planned a little bit, or was it like here? A little bit of both, maybe first year.
Yeah, that's definitely part of our planning. A big part of our layout planning process is just trying to collect every bit of information of everything that's going to be, anything that has a footprint in camp needs to be documented. So we did get measurements of tents that were going to be coming, so we could make sure that they were all going to fit in the shade structure. Obviously, about 50% of the measurements that we got were completely wrong, but that's just something that it's the burn. You have to deal with it.
Burn.
Yeah,
gotta roll with it.
So yeah, but it was good that we did, because as we were laying out the tents with the shade structure, we started to see that our initial estimates of how big of a shade structure we would need were not going to be sufficient. And because of this type of shade structure, it's so modular that we were able to add on extra squares and expand it to accommodate for the additional space that we needed.
That was one of the reasons.
Yeah, go ahead, Cole.
That was one of the reasons that we chose this model of shade structure to begin with, is because it's expandable almost endlessly.
And I think a lot of people are going to ask about how it performed in different conditions, like the rain and the wind. So first of all, during the setup process, how did it do during setup? Like, did it want to fly away? Did you take precautions when you were putting it up? Because those tarps, they're sails. They don't let wind through. Those things are going to pull in a windstorm. Did you take any precautions to secure it while you were building it, so it didn't fly away or anything like that?
When we were setting up the actual tarps, like after the frame was built, we had the tarps being set up by some pretty strong people, and in teams of like 3 and sometimes 4, just because the wind did start to pick up that afternoon. And so we'd have 2 people holding one side of it as 2 other people were up on ladders using ball bungees to secure the grommets.
And
we
then
also in our process we set up the whole framework first. So the legs went up, the frames, like the upper frames went up, and then we secured those with the leg bolts. We secured them with the guy lines. So everything was strapped down before we even started putting the tarps up as well.
Oh, that's super smart. Yeah. We did that in the demo video. We did that because we were working in high winds as well. So at the end of this, there's a demo video and you get to see exactly how to do the high wind protocol like Skip did. That's brilliant. Okay, let's talk about rain. I know it never rains on the playa, but maybe last year a little bit. I can see that you've got the Suez Canal running through the middle there, that you've dug a nice little trench in. Tell us what you guys did when it rained, because I see you've pulled the corners down and stuff. So let's talk about that.
So the tarp that we chose for this, there's two options that Peter mentioned earlier for tarping. There's the shade cloth, which is porous and it lets airflow and lets heat dissipate, but it's not waterproof. So we opted for this material, which is waterproof. And I think this was probably more of a cost decision because the shade cloth is more expensive. So we opted for this, which would give a little bit more light protection as well, but not let the heat escape as easily. And thank God we did, because the tarps are completely waterproof. So we did have a lot of dry space underneath, but obviously there's going to be rain that comes through the cracks of it. And then the rain also pools in the tarps. So every hour or so, you can see it's starting to pool in the middle of the tarps, and then we got to push it up with brooms. So that was a bit of a stressful night the first night, having to have somebody on broom duty. But we discovered the next day that you can see in this picture, we pulled one of the corners, or one corner on each tarp down, and secured it with a ball bungee so it's taut. And then that would actually allow the water to run off the corner instead of pooling. And so then it became maintenance free after that. And then the only challenge is that you now have water flowing down there, but at least it's focused on one spot and not everywhere. So we did have a lot of dry spots within the camp. And then we did, you can see that our channeling technique. So we did build all these channels where the water was coming down to try and funnel the water out of the tent area. And that actually worked pretty well.
That's brilliant. I do see, by the way, some really great questions coming in the chat window. So please keep those coming. In just a couple of minutes, Pholicia and Anita are going to come back on and feed the questions to our panelists here. So let's just go on to our next shade structure, which is your event space, the Polar Bar.
It's one of my favorite things to interact with every year. We dreamed this up. It was manufactured. There's a company out of Montreal that will design you an inflatable anything that you want. And yeah, it was actually a really interesting process. The key with this is we had to have it re-engineered to survive 75-mile-per-hour winds as per Burning Man kind of regulations for structure. And so that's why it's not a perfect hemisphere. It's a little bit squat, but that makes it look more like a real igloo anyway.
And what happened in the rain with that thing? Was it just like an oasis? It was pretty dry in there?
So the first night we ended up having a great party inside of it, and then the rain kind of kept on coming and coming and coming. And so the floor of the igloo is a huge canvas tarp. And so we didn't realize that, yes, we are protected by the dome, but the rain still is collecting underneath. And so by the next morning, we were quite flooded. It wasn't as waterproof as we wanted it to be.
Was it a slip and slide bar? That's what happened to us. Our shade structure turned into slip and slide. It was pretty fun.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was definitely a good break from the rain for sure.
Yeah.
That'd be a good oasis. Okay, so what else was I going to ask you about? I think that's pretty good. Did you guys have any other tidbits you'd want to share? Any tips and tricks or secrets that you guys want to share with everyone before we do Q&A?
Yeah, definitely. I think. Oh, Cole, do you want to go?
No, go ahead, Skip.
Yeah, I think a big key learning for us and some advice would be to, number one is do 1 or 2 practice setups before you get to the burn. We did one sort of test run in a park where we just tried to figure out the best, like, how to set it up and the best process to set it up. But it wasn't a really proper, complete build. We kind of just got partway there. So I would definitely just test different ways of setting it up and make a plan. Because like the more, as we all know, the more that you plan before the burn, the smoother things will go. Because obviously something's going to go wrong. And the more prepared you are, the better. And just the other advantage of that is just efficiency. Because I think that for us, when we got down to the burn, it took a really long time to get everything set up. And I think that there's some benefit in testing to see which is the most efficient way. I think there's a couple ways you could do it. Either like securing the legs first and building the structure on top, or what a lot of people do is build the top structure, and then prop up the legs from the bottom. So it's kind of two ways. And I think just testing it out and having a good plan ahead of time is definitely advantageous.
And what Skip's referring to is for the flat panel structures, like the ones that the tents are in. That's a chicken and egg question. And we actually demonstrate that in the video at the end as well, talking about the legs first or the roof first. That is the question. That's the $1 billion question. Well, thank you guys. Let's bring our super helpful drag queens back on. Pholicia. Oh, hey, girls. Hey.
Hey.
What's going on over there? Oh,
Hi.
okay. So
I have a question.
Did you guys have time to do any questions over there, or were you just drinking apple cider?
We do have a question.
Okay.
We know how many tents can fit under there, but how many bears can you fit under the tent?
Under the igloo, we can fit about 80 bears inside the igloo.
Party.
Ooh, it's exciting.
Oof.
Yeah.
Oh, the smell. I can smell that from here.
The aromas.
We also heard that the manufacturer of the dome is able to make inflatable anything, and we just want clarification on anything.
So it's like whatever inflatable structure that you can dream of. So do you want an Irish pub? Do you want a castle? Do you want a log cabin? Like they will design you anything that you kind of want.
This is PG. This is PG. We need to not talk about all the options there. Okay, Pholicia, do we have any other questions from the audience?
Yeah, just one more. Who manufactures the equipment?
The flat panel, the company that we were going to order from is called Form and Reform, and they make these kind of shade structure kits for burners at cost. They're really great, but the problem is they don't offer any shipping whatsoever. They're based out of Oakland, and the largest package that they offer is 35 by 30, or no, a 20 by 30 structure, and it weighs 700 pounds and pretty much requires like a truck to move. So
that's like 3 bears. That's like 3 bears. 3 bears. What happened there? Sorry, that was like 3 bears. 700 pounds, or 5 Canadian bears, 3 American bears. Ooh, I'm allowed to be sassy. Are you the only ones that can be sassy? Okay, I think that's all the time we have for questions. But everyone, we will answer all the questions from this chat session in a follow-up to this session in an email. And also at the end, I should mention, Cole mentioned the what was it called? What was it called? Your vendor?
Form and Reform.
Form and Reform. We've got a list of all the places that you can get these parts. At the end of the session, there's a QR code that brings up our resources. So on there will be all these different places we're talking about with links. So hang out for that at the end of our session as well. Okay, well, thank you, Cole, and thank you, Skip. We're going to move on now to our next panelists. And that was great, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
I will see you in the Polar Bar. I love the Polar Bar.
So next there.
Okay, bye guys. Bye. Next up, we've got my friend Sarah from Camp Beaverton, which is, I think, one of the very first camps I knew about. Lots of friends over there in Beaverton. And Sarah, where are you at right now? Where are you? Tell me about you.
I'm in San Francisco, and I belong to Camp Beaverton. We a long-running camp in Playa. We are safe space for women, trans and non-binary folks, and we have our Queer Happy Life on Playa. We also provide workshops around a wide variety of topics, and we host some fun parties.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. How long, by the way, how long have you been with Camp Beaverton? Just a couple of years now, right?
I have just a couple of years. So I've
But
been,
they've been around
2022,
forever.
2023.
They've
Beaverton's been
been
around
for
since
like
2007, I think, ish.
I think so. Yeah, they're a real staple.
Yes.
I love you guys. So let's talk about your structure, shall we? Here's another satellite image, and why don't you just walk us through all the different types of structures you guys use in your camp here?
So I guess what really sort of ties the story together is that we're not committed to any particular type of structure. We have so many different types, which I don't recommend, by the way.
Your structure fluid.
Oh my gosh. Okay, from left to right, we have our frontage, which is our social area, and we have a dome that you can see there. We have a carport, which is the entrance to the dome, and then we have two flat tops, which are actually the Black Rock shade that Polar Bear was talking about that they couldn't pick up. So we did get some of that last year. And then we have a big carport at the end of that. So that's all of our frontage. It's our bar. That's where we do our workshops. That's where we have our play space. And that just is kind of our social frontage. And then as you go towards the right of the screen, there's a set of other structures that you're pointing over. That's a tensile structure. So we have a teepee under that, and then we have some shade over the teepee that is tied up to the different shade structures around it. To the bottom of that is another tensile structure that is kind of built over a kind of U-shape, like a goalpost structure that is tied down with ratchet straps, and then we put more shade over that so that we could have a shaded patio. To the right of that, you have two carports that make up the kitchen. So right there, that's our kitchen structure. The carports, we use carports for kitchen because you can close them up and kind of keep the dust out.
Oh, that's good. That's smart.
Yes. And you put two together so you have a kitchen area, then a serving area and water and things like that. Above that, there's some flat shade structure. That's a 20 by 20 that was DIY'd a few years ago. So not compatible with the Black Rock shade structures. They don't kind of tie together. And then we have a carport for a garage. To the right of that, we have some shade just thrown between that structure. And this long thing that you see there, which is a rectangle, that is all Black Rock hardware. So what Polar Bear friends were referring to, this is a Burning Man camp. They raise funds by building up these structures at cost and selling it to other burners. They do art on Playa as well. They have, I have no affiliation to them, but I think they provide a really nicely packaged and thought out kit.
They're great. They're great.
For like a 30 by 20, a 36 by 20 foot structure, it's about $1,200 more or less. And it comes packaged in bins and boxes and easily transportable by car or truck or pickup truck.
So we have a link to Black Rock hardware. We've got a link to Black Rock hardware in the resources as well. So we'll do that as well at the end.
Excellent. So we got 2 rows of those. They come in these 12 by 20 units, and you can kind of buy as many as you want. So we have a row of 6 and a row of 5, which is how far our budget took us. And then in between, we threw just more tarps. So we just kind of trying to stretch out the space. We've had these 2 rows. We made a sort of a 10-foot gap between them and put more tarps in between, just to have what we called our main street inside of our camp. So all the tents would kind of open up to that main street, and you could have all your campmates kind of walking up and down that lane, which was also kept dry during the rain.
I've got some more questions about the structures, but let's move on to this slide where you've got this absolutely cool mock-up of your camp in SketchUp. So I love to talk about how you prepared for the playa, what you guys did to get ready and to know what you're going to do with your structures. And this is one of the best ones I've ever seen. So congratulations on this. And it looks almost exactly like what you had in your satellite photo. So bravo. Go ahead.
despite all the last minute changes on Playa, because everything shifts around a little bit, but it was mostly on the details, not on the main sort of structural parts.
That's
But
great.
yes, I totally recommend. I mean, you can't think about shade without thinking about layout. They're kind of one and the same, and they're tied together. Like where do you put your shade? How where you have your sort of eating, living, social, hangout, and living spaces laid out really affect how much shade you have there, where people congregate, where you kind of naturally meet your campmates. I mean, we have about between 50 and 60 people at camp at any given time staying at camp. We also receive during the year, during the burn, we actually receive kind of refugees from other camps, women who may come from a difficult situation. And so we have built in some extra shade for that. And so, yeah, think about your layout. We used Figma, which is a sort of a UI UX design tool to sort of flat map it. And then once it was more or less stable, put it onto SketchUp, which is this tool, which is free online. It took me a couple of days of tinkering to get this up. All these pieces, you kind of download other people's maps. You know, the other people have already built all these structures on there. And so you just kind of download them, copy paste them, modify them a little bit and lay out your structure. But it really helps to sort of figure out, well, where's the sun coming from? How does the shade evolve over the day? And then you also have to think, where's your wind coming from, which is really important because all these shade structures have to be able to sustain wind, but where you put them also protects one shade structure from another for those circumstances.
That's actually a great point, and I don't think anyone else is talking about that today. The orientation of the structure is super important. So where you are in the city might determine how you position your structures, right? So got to know which way the predominant wind is coming, which way the sun arc is going through the day, and look at that relative to where you're going to be placed in the map. That's a brilliant point. Just so I can kind of get a baseline across the different panelists today. Tell us just how big is your tenting area here? What was the total dimensions again? I forgot. I think you said it.
So the dimensions are 72 by 50 with a little cutout.
Quite large.
So it's quite large. We fit about 22 tents in there, plus the main street, which is that middle lane. And you can also extend it out a little bit by putting sort of these diagonal mesh cloths on either side to kind of make more room for the tents. Again, we also really appreciated the 12 by 10 layout because it allows for shift pods and a bit tents that are a little bit larger.
Yeah,
and I do want
to.
So I do want to address this a real quick question someone made on chat. It's like, who's involved in playout? Everyone has an opinion on layout, and the more people in camp you get involved, the better, because you get all these different considerations kind of baked in, and you can kind of negotiate who gives shade to what. You know, like the RVs are not given priority in our camp because they have like their own ACs, but tents tend to be harsher with the sun, and so we do give them sort of priority under the shade.
All right, well, let's move on to a couple of quick slides here before we take questions. We got about 3 more minutes or so before questions. I love this. This is like, I describe this as shade structure porn. You got it all. You got the carport, you got the dome, you got the flat panel, you got the tension. I mean, you guys have it all. So let me ask you one question. What's your favorite one?
Oh, what's my favorite one? I do love the flat panel. I am sold on the flat panel, and we all of the BlackRock shade you see here is new from last year, and it's just so much more convenient. It's packaged, it's kind of intuitive to some degree, and so it's easy to explain to people how it works, so new folks can get up and running and be productive and help out quickly. It doesn't require too many people to deal with it. And it's easily extensible. The pieces are all interchangeable. There's a fewer number of pieces. There really is a long list of benefits that I'm very fond of. The carport, again, great if you have a kitchen, but they do sort of become greenhouses if you want to have your tent in there, and they're hard to put together. They have a lot of pieces, a lot of different pieces. It's very easy to lose one piece and your whole carport is gone. and to keep track of how many carports you have because pieces get mixed up between the different carports. Domes, the dome is great because it's a big space, but it's so hard to build. It takes like the entire camp a full day, and you need 20 people to lift up the hexagonal metal structure, to go lifting it up as you go building rows. So like you start with the flatter part and then you kind of lift it, then you add another layer and you lift it and you add another layer. So it takes a lot of effort to build, but it is our sort of it is our kind of safe space in there, so we keep it. And then the tensile structures, if they're simple, they're great because they just extend your shade, you know, between structures, and so you can have hangout space, essentially patios and places to eat.
What kind of, I know on the tensile structures, the tension structures, the tension is very important. That's what's creating the structure itself. So the ground anchors become super important with that. What kind of ground anchors did you use in the tension type structure? Do you recall?
Well, I'll make a very important distinction that the size matters here. And so these are very small. These are these are very small tension structures.
Of course,
so we're just kind of shading between spaces. And so we just use ratchet straps and lag bolts, and those are fine.
Lag bolts.
And they're mesh. It's mesh on top, and so the wind doesn't catch as much. If you want to have like a party space or a bar, that's a much bigger deal, and you're going to really need to sort of study the engineering of your anchors.
Yes. The fabric makes a huge difference, doesn't it? So if the tension structure were made out of a waterproof material or a non-porous material, the ground anchors have to be massive. I mean, you know, you got to use nails like this long. But if the wind can go through it, it's a lot less mission critical.
We use lag bolts almost exclusively. They're very easy to put into the ground. They're very easy to pull up. They hold in much better than a nail. A rebar is very good at sticking to the ground, but it's very, very hard to put it in and very, very hard to pull it out. And so we've been using lag bolts that are 18 inches in length. And I think that's a very important distinction because before that we had a standard of 14 inches and half an inch head. Now we're doing 18 inches and a 3/4 inch head. And the reason for that is that, I mean, the larger one, the 18 inch, when it rains, you lose about this much of playa that gets wet and soggy, and it no longer serves as an anchor. And so you really do need the longer lag bolts to get deep enough so that they don't just come up when the mud happens.
I can just see what our drag queens are saying right now during this discussion. They're over there. 18, not enough. So, oh, hi girls, I was talking about you. How you doing over there? This is your frontage. You guys hang on for a second. We're not quite done yet. Just stay there though. We're not quite done. Sarah, this is the Camp Beaverton frontage where the magic happens. Is that right? The interactive space?
That's correct.
All right. So I just wanted to show a picture of that and talk a little bit about how you guys did in Mudmageddon, because this is a great photo capturing all the fun. Carports are magical in Mudmageddon, aren't they? They're like the best thing you could have, I heard.
They work really well. So our kitchen was mostly unscathed, even though mud travels in anyway with people walking around, and the ply actually kind of acts as a sponge. But the carports did well. The Black Rock Shade did reasonably well as well. It was quite surprising. Apart from the first night trying to figure out how to do we're doing the broom stuff as well until we figured out the same solution. You can tie down the corners, or you can poke a little hole in the middle. And that would be enough to drain out the sagging of the water. But the Black Rock Shade held up decently well. We actually didn't have any issues with any of our structures with the rain.
All right, let's move on to some questions. Thank you, Sarah. Pholicia, Anita, how are you doing over there? You're still standing.
Oh, we're
it's a miracle.
Great. We're doing great. We do have some questions though.
Okay. That's apple cider, I know.
We're not covered. Is that for any reason?
Can you say that again?
It looks like the RVs are not covered by the shade structure. Is that for any reason?
Yes, the RVs are not covered by shade because RVs are already better protected from the sun than our tents. And so just for budget reasons, we prioritize tents on campers that didn't have an alternative.
And then
we also use our RVs, and where possible, we actually put trucks and RVs in the morning sun to block the morning sun of other campers behind them. And so you can use these bigger vehicles as shade as well, or kind of tie tarps from the RV to something else, and then create shade for someone in between.
So that was.
Did you have any vehicles? Did you have any vehicles in carports with shade, like any vans or anything? Like, did you use carports over any vehicles at all? Because you didn't. Oh, I think I saw it.
Only one van had some sort of shade, but not the bigger ones.
Because a lot of people I know have questions about this. Did the people in the van say that made a big difference in terms of managing heat, or did it make it worse? Like, if I had a van, would I put a carport over it to keep it warm, or am I just creating an oven?
I personally will never sleep in a carport again. My tent not last year, but the year before, hit 125°F inside a carport, which is just a greenhouse. And you can open up the sides as much as you like, but they don't block out 100% of the sun. So they're translucent. So it's very bright under the carport anyway. And you have the effect of the sort of the greenhouse effect. And so I much rather BlackRock shade, because you have 100% or any sort of flat roof structure that you can have a flat tarp on top. It's 100%. You can even have reflective material on it, or the tarp itself can be reflective. And all the sides are open, and so you let the wind through, and it breathes. So it's much better from a shade perspective. And here I want to throw a safety plug in here, if I may.
Okay, please. Safety third. That's our motto.
Safety third. Okay, so a lot of the time when people ask about anchoring down flat top shade, they think, well, I got to put the anchors on the sides at an angle so the wind doesn't topple it over and it doesn't catch the wind like a sail. That is actually not the main concern. When you have any sort of structure that is flat like this and you have tents underneath, the wind on the bottom doesn't flow as much as the wind on top. And so in sort of engineering terms, that's a wing. It's a wing that generates lift. And so in high winds, these flat top structures, particularly when they're not mesh, when they're like solid tarp, they want to fly up. They want to fly up and away. Not sideways. They're not being pushed, they're being pulled up. And so one of the things that is really important for safety is you got to make sure that you anchor down even the inside pillars to the ground with some sort of solid anchoring. And so that could be a ratchet strap that you tie in at your 5-way in the middle, a ratchet strap, you anchor it down with a lag bolt, or in the case of these structures, the BlackRock hardware, they actually pin the poles together because they're actually cut in 3 sections so that you can pack them in a car. So they pin the poles together. They pin the pole to a foot plate that you can screw into the ground, and then they pin the pole to the 5-way at the top. And then this makes sure that the whole thing is mechanically connected to the ground. When you just use the screws,
I hate to cut you off. We got to move on. Thank you. We're short on time. Right. Only because that was amazing. So thank you for all that information. Pholicia and Anita, can you guys keep track of those questions? Try not to lose them. Yes. I don't know if I trust you. I don't know if I trust you.
I will try to answer some I'll answer some in the chat if I can. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. That's brilliant. You are brilliant, and I hope to see you soon down in the Bay Area. Thank you for coming on today. We're going to move on to the camp near and dear to my heart, the Camp Shutterbuggy. And from Camp Shutterbuggy, we got Al and Artem. They are brothers in crime and in real life. And they are going to be talking about our camp today. I'm going to talk about it. I can't just sit here and pretend that I don't know anything. I'm the lead for the camp, so I will chime in. But I wanted to also bring in Artem, who's our DPW lead this year, who'll be in charge of setup. So he really is going to be in charge of setting up our shade structure. And Al was there last year during setup and worked on the structure from start to finish. So these guys really have a firsthand information on how to set everything up. So welcome, guys. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
I'll throw it out to you. I'll throw it out to you guys because I know what I would say about our camp. But what would you say our camp is about? What do you think?
Yeah, so we're Camp Shutterbuggy. So we have basically a photo booth that's mobile and is going around the playa and stopping at the different fun places where people can jump in and take a photo and have a beautiful printout after. So it's a very beloved art car that's a little bit famous on the playa. And we also have daily events like nighttime event parties, which are called Snappy Hour. Yeah, a lot of fun in there as well. That's basically who we are. And Peter is a leader, yeah. So I'm a little bit biased. Yeah. I'm gonna be. I love this camp. So.
Thank you. Al, in one word, what's our camp?
What is our camp?
In one word. He's a man of few words, so I'm making him choose one.
One word, camera.
Okay, that's it. All right. Thanks, guys. You're the best. I love you both. Okay. So let's move on and talk about our structures. So this is what our camp looks like from space. And I just got to say how impressed I am with how tidy our camp is, especially everyone parking their bike where they're supposed to park it. I just couldn't believe that. That was just unbelievable. And here's our new solar array, which you can apparently see from space. So that was pretty cool. So we're 100% solar power now. But that's a different session, so we won't talk about that. So Artem and Al, do you want to just talk about the different structures that we have on site here?
Yeah, for sure. So as you can see, the biggest part of the the camp layout is the flat panel shade structure, which is probably one of the best designed shade structures I've seen. As you can see, it's kind of like a tunnel, and that's basically to create a wind flow, which we have two swamp coolers on both ends. It's very closed off structure, so you can see it's yeah, exactly. We have these two ends, and then we have two swamp coolers which blowing cool air on the inside, and then there in the middle we have a little opening. And the opening we're not gonna say what it's called because it's a PG-13 podcast here, but yeah, so the air comes out from that little opening, and then it's oh yeah, yes, I see, Peter, you want to show off the Maharaja tent. So we have also the large tent structure there as well. We have some containers. Yeah, that's about it. As you can see, we don't have many RVs or anything. It's a very eco tent,
very RV free
camp.
Okay, so let's see. What's the dimensions of the shade structure, if you recall?
Yeah, it's 120 feet long, and then it's a 40 feet wide structure. So for the roof poles, we use 10 feet poles for the roof, for the width, I guess. For the height, there's 7 feet poles. That's again with purpose. They're kind of low just to keep that airflow going from both sides. But 7 feet is just enough for the tents to fit in. And we have like the same uniform tents throughout, which fit very nicely in each segment. So it actually looks pretty cool because it looks like almost like an army kind of settlement. Very nicely organized. Oh, nice. There's a picture. Yeah, exactly. So as you can see, it really fits very nicely there for the 7 feet poles. And then we have like slanted edges of the this shade structure. So these tents, they also kind of fit in very nicely under that slant on the side. Yeah, so maybe I can talk a bit about materials. We have so first of all, the poles, they are not your standard 1-inch poles. They're 1 3/8 inch, so they're stronger, which allows us to have these larger shade tarps on the top, which are 20 by 30 feet. So just because we have the stronger poles. So on the top, the shade tarps, they let in the air, they don't let in the sun. And on top of the shade tarps, we have illuminate, which reflects the sun but lets in the air. On the bottom, we have the dust mats, which let the dust fall through, but keep the top kind of clean. Yeah,
that's one. I think that's one of the coolest things about one of the neat things unique about our structure are those sand mats. So I've got a link to those in the additional resources, but they're these cool mats where you walk on them and you get the dust on them and the dust goes down, but it doesn't come back up. So for the whole time, unless it rains, your ground cover is completely clean through the whole event. It's amazing. They're made for the beach. So you go to the beach, you put them on the beach, and then you can walk around on the sand stays off of them. They're really, really cool. That was one of the coolest additions that we did for sure. So Al, let me ask you, what do you think about camping, tenting in here? How do you like it? Is it cool? Is it quiet? What does it do in the dust? How did it do in the rain?
It is cool. I wouldn't say it's quiet. There's strange noises coming from all directions. And then there's this area of the shade structure which cannot be named, where the air comes in. A lot of guys like to pack in there. We have guys coming in there and just hanging out and having fun. But it is quite cool though, and we got the swamp coolers going. And at one point of time, I was fixing my LEDs in front of my tent, and I was actually just freezing. I was actually just having like a cold day in the middle of a desert. I thought I gotta go somewhere else because this is just not survivable.
Oh, it was too cold. You had to leave.
Yeah, I had to go somewhere else because my tent was right beside the swamp cooler. So
amazing.
Yeah, it's a silly problem to have in the middle of a desert when people are sweating to death, and I was the one freezing to death.
We are from Canada, that's why I can't survive the hot. So we did design this to stay cool, but maybe a little too cool. So, hey, I wanted to share this really, really neat video that Al took it, or Artem took. You can see Artem. So you can see these guys time lapse putting up our structure, and they started with the ground cloths, those sand mats. And then in this case, we put the roof on first, and the roof is actually 2 layers of material. We've got shade cloth first, and then a luminette on top to reflect the sun. And then when it's all done, you can see some lights in there. We've got a luminette over the entire thing, and it really performs well.
Peter, can I just add something about that?
Yeah,
video?
go ahead.
As you can see, we didn't use ladders to put that up. So that's one of the advantage of the 7 feet legs. If you're somewhat taller,
that's true.
you just hold it up, and you can put some people stand on their tippy toes, but they can hold it up, and it is a bit like flexible. So you can see we kind of lift it up halfway in one side and like keep lifting it slowly throughout the whole structure. So it was easy to set up.
You need a lot of people to do that, though. I mean, you can't do it with 4 people because you got to have people. If you put the roof on first, you have to have people holding the whole structure while other people put the legs on. And I will say from experience, if you try that with the thinner poles, the 1-inch EMT, not the stuff that we use in Camp Shutterbuggy, which is a 1 3/8 fence post, the 1-inch conduit, if you're not careful, is just going to buckle on you. So be careful if you do put the stuff on first and then raise it, that you got enough people to support it and it's not going to bend, because the conduit will just buckle. Okay, so I want to just talk about a little bit of playa preparation that we did. So this year we documented the shade structure really carefully, because this was the first year I wasn't even present for setup. These guys did such an amazing job. I was at my nephew's wedding and I had to document everything. So I put together like a technical diagram of the shade structure with all the parts that they could follow. And I think that went pretty well, right, Artem? It worked pretty well?
Yeah. So as you saw in the video, first we laid down the mats, and we had the printout of this, this diagram, which just kind of laid in the center there. And we, as a camp, went around searching for parts, and we just laid them out across the perimeter before we start connecting everything. So super important to have this, I think, especially if you don't have the camp leader with us. So everybody was really on point. And I think, Peter, you're going to mention it later, but as you can see here, we have different fittings, right? We have 3-way, 4-way, all kinds of ways. What we found out is that having just 5-way, just
this guy right here.
Yeah, all of them can be replaced with that one fitting. So that way you don't, and we're probably going to save a little bit of time because we had all these containers and people were searching which part goes where. Instead, it can be just one part that goes everywhere.
That's the new pro tip from the Playa, is that if you're going to do a flat panel structure, buy all 5-way fittings and they'll work anywhere. You don't need any of these other ones because it'll do the same thing. Then you don't have to worry. And I did want to share real quickly, we're kind of running a little short on time, but I wanted to share real quickly the cooling plan for the structure, because I think I haven't seen too many other shade structures that are actively cooled. And that was really our plan, because we're from Canada, we don't do heat. I needed a cool shade structure. So we designed it from the ground up with this design in mind, where we put 2 industrial-sized swamp coolers on either end, and they're pretty big. They're like 6 feet tall, and water goes into them, and it blows air through the structure, and then the air exits out these side vents here, which we can't name, and then inside of each tent is a small 7-inch construction fan that circulates the cool air into the tent, which is actually a really important thing. If you are trying to cool a shade structure, make sure the tents have fans as well, because otherwise the cool air just whooshes right by them. And so why we do it this way is that swamp coolers need fresh air. So if we didn't have these ventilation things in the middle, the air would become too humidified. And then the swamp coolers lose their effectiveness. So for swamp coolers to be really effective, they need to suck in it's fine if it's even hot air, but it needs to suck in the dry air, push it through, and it needs to escape. And I got to tell you, I'm just so impressed at how well this worked. I think so many people come into our camp and they go, what the heck? I can't believe how cool it is in here. It must be in Fahrenheit, like 20, 25 degrees cooler than outside. It's really, really effective. So it is possible to cool these things if you plan for it. Okay, obviously, this is our event space. Obviously, our thing doesn't perform well in rain. We talked about a little bit like what we would do next year in rain. So what do you think, Artem and Al, about bringing tarps maybe to throw over the whole thing? Think that might work?
As you mentioned before, the new plan is to bring the tarps and just waterproof tarps, and just if it rains, throw them over top of the shade structure. And I think were we supposed to dig some tunnels or like some trenches around the shade structure? The second,
and then channel the water.
Yeah, that would help. Yeah, it would channel the water better. Okay, well, guys, this is our event space. It's our Maharaja tent. Fun photo there. But I want to move on to questions, because we're getting near the end of this magical show we've created here, 50 Shades of Shade. Pholicia,
hi.
You there?
Yes,
hi.
We're here. Hi.
Oh.
I have some questions.
Okay, bring it on.
So, do you have a spreadsheet comparing all the different features of the tents?
No.
Not you. I can't believe.
Comparing them?
Comparing the different types of tents,
for the
material.
Oh, you mean for the whole presentation, not just for Camp Shutterbuggy.
Question didn't ask that specifically, but sure, let's go with that.
Sure. Yeah, okay, yeah, we can do that for you. We'll do that after the session. I can add it to the resource doc that I'll link to. Just come back to that, tomorrow. I'll add a little bit of a matrix that shows the different types of materials you can use and their benefits, because that's actually a really good question. There's not one material that's going to work for all conditions. Some are going to be better for reflecting heat. Some are better for water. Some are better for airflow. Some are better for shade, for reflecting the sun. So it really is important to kind of maybe use more than one material on your structure like we did, and be able to adapt. Any next question there, guys?
There was some interest in the swamp coolers because they're amazing. Speaking from experience, what is the brand of the coolers recommended?
Cool Space is the one we use, and yeah, it's called Cool Space, and I can put a link to that into the resources doc as well. Cool Space.
Last question would be
welcome.
is if any of the camp leads are using hot water generators.
Just hot water in general to heat things?
For the shower, I'm assuming, yeah.
Maybe that's just
I'm not sure.
my own thinking of like.
I think you've had too much apple cider. You've had too much apple cider. We're
I
cutting
swear.
her off. You're done. You're done. You're done. We're moving on. Moving on. You guys, more apple cider. Hey, Alan, are you there? So I think first I'd like to thank Al and Artem for coming on today and sharing information about Camp Shutterbuggy. Thank you guys so much. You guys are my heroes in real life and in this session. So now we're going to do a little audience participation, and you get to tell us what you think the best shade structures are for the camping, which is very different than events. So one thing I hope you can take away from this is the requirements really dictate what kind of structure you go with. And for the most part, a lot of people are gravitating towards I shouldn't say that. I'm just going to run the poll. So Alan, go ahead, throw that poll up there, please. And you can vote for what your favorite shade structure is. And you have as much time. Oops, wait a minute. That's the results. Oh, what happened? Does everyone see the poll? Now I'm just seeing the results of the poll. I'm not seeing the poll itself. Or maybe I voted already. I don't know. Oh, I'm seeing the results in real time. Oh, I guess because I'm a host. I don't know. I'm such a newbie. Look at that. They're coming in real time. Does everyone see that? Give me a thumbs up. Does everyone see those results in real time?
No, they
Peter,
don't
I
see the
don't think
results.
you're new at
No,
anything.
it's just us.
Oh, it's just us. Okay,
Yeah.
so you guys have as much time to answer the poll as it takes for Pholicia and Anita to make a non-alcoholic beverage.
Yes.
Or something, or you had some other idea.
We have a cocktail for everybody.
Couple minutes.
Really refreshing.
Hey,
cocktail.
it's a
Very
non-alcoholic
I'm
cocktail.
chopping things.
Can you match that for me?
All right, let's wrap up that poll, Alan. Let's see what we got. I'll just end it myself. Okay. All right, so what are we looking at? The votes are in. And we've got what type of shade structure would you choose for shading tents? And 70% goes with flat panel. So the overwhelming winner is a flat panel. And then what would you do for your hosting space? This is very interesting. So a lot of people chose flat panel, and it was a pretty even distribution here. So that's pretty interesting. There, I think it depends on what kind of event you're hosting. But yeah, that's interesting. I personally, I'm not so sure. The flat panel is great, but the roof tends to be lower. It kind of creates a bit of a claustrophobic event space. Like the igloo from Polar Bar is super cool, and I like big spaces for events, but that's just me. So thank you guys for participating in that poll. We'll share the results as well. And what I wanted to do now, we're almost getting to the end of our session here. Bring everyone back on to say thank you. And we're here to help you guys. The help doesn't end with this session. We would like to respond to your emails. We'd like to help you build your shade structures, plan your shade structures, whatever help you need. Go ahead, Alan, bring everyone on. Let's wave a big goodbye. Everyone turn your video on. And you can scan that QR code to bring up the resources for this session. And I'll add some stuff on there as well. So I'd like to thank everybody. All of our panelists, our fabulous drag queen hosts. That was a lot of fun. That was super great. Thank you guys so much. Now, please don't go away because we're at the end of our official session, but we've got an unofficial how-to video on how to create a shade structure. So I'd like to thank you guys, and please hang out for this. If you'd like to take off, there's a link to this video in the resources. But please feel free to stand by. We're not going to end the meeting until after our video here. Thanks, guys. Hi, I'm here in my workshop, getting ready to go demonstrate how to put up a shade structure. And I just wanted to look at a few tools that we're going to bring. I've got my helper Zach over here. Zach, say hi. He'll be going out to a park today and showing you how to assemble the shade structure with me. So a few things you want to bring: a giant measuring tape so that you can measure from the borders of your assigned placed camp, and you might have to measure 50, 100-foot distances to get to the edge of your shade structure, depending on your layout. So make sure you bring one of those. We're going to be demonstrating lag bolts, so I've got an impact driver, some basic screwdrivers and wrenches, because on these turn screws here, the thumb screws, sometimes they get really tight. You need a screwdriver to get them on. You might even use a screwdriver to put them on, or you're going to need a screwdriver to get them off. You might need a screwdriver to put them on as well. Don't forget your work gloves. An angle grinder. I know, sounds a little extreme, but I've actually used this almost every time on the playa. We'll be using these metal poles in our shade structure, and you might need to adjust the sizes. So I definitely recommend having one of these. And we've got a variety of different kind of things to pound things in the ground, all the way up to a giant sledgehammer. And we'll be using those to demonstrate different kinds of ground anchors. So that's it. We're going to pack up and head out. Okay, we're ready to start assembling the first part of the shade structure, which is to lay out the roof frame on the ground. And in terms of the audience for this video, I'm really targeting people who maybe have not done a big shade structure before, or never, or no shade structure. I'm going to try to throw in some tips and tricks as well for you experts to make it interesting, keep things lively. So stay with us. You might learn a thing or two. And we've got the poles that we'll be using for this section. I use some heavier duty poles than a lot of people do. These are actually 1 3/8 steel fence posts. A lot of people use 1-inch EMT, which is great. We went with the heavier one because, as you'll see today, we're actually doing our shade structure in a 30 by 30 section rather than 10 by 10s. It goes up a lot faster. And in order for that to work, I need the extra strength of these 1 3/8 steel poles. We have finished putting on the fittings around our 20 by 30 section here. And I just want to talk about the fittings real quick. We're using just 3 different kinds today. This is a foot that's going to go under the leg. So I put one of those at each of these areas that's going to get a leg. And this is what's called a 3-way corner. So on all the corners, we'll get one of those. And then the leg is going to go into there when we put it up. And then where I don't have a corner, I get a T. So it just joins the 2 pipes, and then the leg is going to go in here. And one tip that I've heard from a few people is to buy a more fancy 5-way. If you have all of your joints be a 5-way like this, they'll actually work for any part of your whole shade structure. They cost slightly more, but then you don't have to worry about, do I have enough of this part or enough of that part? You can use the same part for every single piece of your shade structure. We didn't do that, but a lot of people are doing it these days. So next up, we are going to put the legs on, and it helps to have lots of people, but we're gonna see if we can muddle through that. Managed to get the feet on there without too many troubles. We made a few rookie moves. It's been a while since we've been on the playa. One thing is, make sure you have all of those screws loosened before you try to put the feet in, so go around your whole structure. Make sure that they're ready to accept the feet, because it's quite awkward when you're trying to get those in. You have to unscrew them. So we kind of did that. And then one thing is often comes up as a question is, chicken and egg question. Do you put the roof on while it's on the ground, or do you put this frame up and then put the roof on after it's up? And I actually don't think there's a right and wrong. It depends on how many people you have. We're doing a high wind protocol. As you can see, it's pretty windy today. So if it's any kind of high wind, you want to put the shade, the roof on after you put the legs on. So we're going to actually now secure each end here of the frame before we put the roof on. That way, if the wind kicks up, the whole thing doesn't blow away. So we wanted to make sure that first and foremost, it's safe. So now we're going to talk about some ground anchors. We've got 3 different kind of ground anchors we're going to demonstrate for you today. And the first one is pretty cool. It's called a claw. We started using these about 8 years ago. And what it does is it's like this is actually made for airplanes. And it spreads out like that, and then it puts a nail into each side there. And so as it pulls, it actually gets tighter in the ground. It's a pretty neat thing, completely flat. You're not going to stub your toes. The next one we're going to demonstrate is the good old-fashioned rebar. And then the last one is quite popular these days, a lag bolt, which requires an impact drill to put in. So we'll demonstrate those different ones on 3 different corners, and then we'll pull on them just to see in a very non-scientific way which one of these is the strongest. Pound in these nails into the claw with a small hammer. So the point of this is just to show you what kind of tools you need to install different types of ground anchor. These claws are really cool because you don't even need a sledgehammer. They're pretty easy to install. Good old-fashioned rebar. Now don't forget to set it at an angle because you'll need to secure your tie down on it and you don't want it falling off. 2 ways to do this. Giant sledgehammer, not easy, or a smaller mallet, depending on how hard the ply is, might work, but it takes a really long time. Rebar is cheap, but it's tough to get out and tough. The last one we got is a lag bolt, and with these, you have to put the tie down onto the lag bolt before you put it into the ground with your impact driver here, or else you won't be able to get it on. So now we got the impact driver. These things are pretty easy to get on and really strong. They also don't kill your toes if you step on them. Now, the only bad part is you need that impact driver. One little tip is most of these tie downs, they are require a washer. So make sure you don't get out on the playa with your lag bolts and no washer, because that tie down slips right over the head of a 1/2 inch headed lag bolt on there. The head is 1/2 inch. It's a little too small for the opening on the tie down. So make sure you get washers. We're gonna start putting up the roof now, and we're gonna have one person on this end and one person on this end pulling it tight from end to end. And after that, we'll attach it in the middles down in the center area after we attach the ends, because you don't want to attach it in the middle first. You might not get the ends lined up perfectly. So we're going to start doing that and attach the entire roof all the way around. Okay, we managed to get the roof up and a few more details so we could accelerate this a little bit. I wanted to first look at a couple of really good tips. So on these corners, which is where we attached it first, it's really important to have a bungee that goes to here, so it pulls it this direction, and then also a bungee that holds it here. Otherwise, when you're putting this up, this corner will slip that way if you don't have it attached in 2 directions. So that only applies to the corners. Make sure that you've got the bungees going in 2 directions on every corner. And then inside here, you can just attach it to the pole once. And you don't have to do every single grommet on the shade cloth. You can do every other one. Okay, let's look at a couple other details. I tightened down these ratchets a little bit, but not too much. You'll notice they're not too tight. I just kind of hand tighten them, and even just hand tightening them on the structure is really, really solid. Like, this thing is not going anywhere now. It is really bomb-proof. It'll withstand any windstorm with throw at it. And a couple more details here. So on the inside, we generally put down this stuff called a sand mat. This stuff is super cool. It's a porous plastic mat where the sand goes down but not up. So as people walk around at Burning Man and get dirt on it, it actually stays clean the entire time. And then we put up one of the sides just for demonstration purposes. At Burning Man, we have sides all the way down, but we put up one, and this is where the tents go. So the front of the tent goes here, back of the tent goes here, and that slanted side bit adds shade, and it also adds more floor area. So we can actually get a tent here and a tent here with a large walkway between with just a 20 by 30 roof. So it really extends our usable footprint having those slanted sides. Let's take a look at some of the details on the outside of this slanted side. A lot of people have little power boxes inside their tent, and these slanted sides actually make a really nice place to hang solar panels. Puts it on a bit of an angle to get that sun. And then my illuminate kind of folded up here. I brought the wrong size illuminate for the demonstration, my apologies. At Burning Man, what we do is we put this stuff called illuminate as a second layer on the entire structure. And this one's too small, so it's flying away. But just imagine this whole thing now being silver. So we actually use two layers, a shade cloth layer and an illuminate layer on the sides and on the roof over the whole thing. And that makes a tremendous difference for heat. It's really is the best way to go. I also recommend using tan shade cloth rather than black shade cloth, which is what we did on the roof. It also absorbs less sunlight. In terms of the ground anchors that we use here for the sides, they're these cool nails that I like. These are a little bit nicer than your typical camping nails. It's got a thing here that stops it from going in all the way. So it's really easy to take out and it doesn't break. A lot of the camping nails are plastic on the end and they break. So you can get these on Amazon. It's just a more durable nail. For the ground cover, to hold that on, you want something that's flush to the ground, not something that's sticking up. So we use these traditional camping nails that have these flush heads, and then they go all the way into the ground so that you don't trip on them. Okay, that's looking pretty good. I think that might be a wrap. Any other details? Zach, we good? All right, that's a wrap. Just to finish up, I wanted to give you a look at what our completed shade structure looks like on the playa. It's 3 of the 30 by 30 sections put together with the illuminate I talked about. You can see it a lot better here than in our demonstration videos. And it goes all the way across the top and all the way across the sides. Here's a breakdown of costs for a 30 by 30 section. I kind of broke it down by each area, and it's not super cheap. So about almost $2,400 for a 30 by 30 section, and we have 3 of those and a little bit more on each end. So, you know, you're looking at about $10,000, but it's a very, very high quality shade structure that'll last a very long time. You can definitely get some cheaper things if you don't want to use illuminate or use the thinner 1-inch EMT instead of the 1 3/8 we use. But overall, I think it's a good investment, and it's really served us well for over 10 years now. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to email me, peter@theegg.ca, and I'd be happy to share any more details about our video today and the parts we use for the shade structure. And that's a wrap for building a shade structure with Peter and Zach. We'll see you on the playa.